And what was the highest price of gas under Joe Biden?
I don't. That's
Did
not,
you ever conduct
Scott,
a
that's
meeting
actually
about
not the
gas
question.
prices?
The question is how are what is
gas is lower today than it was
Scott,
before he?
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not.
MAGA propaganda Scott Jennings was back on Abby Phillip's show once again, putting on the same old disinformation and misinformation routine, tying himself in illogical knots like he always does. We're going to watch several clips from this panel discussion featuring Scott Jennings on Abby Phillip's show along with the rest of the panel. And I'll be sharing my thoughts throughout as we go. Let's jump right into this together.
Trump thinks that, however many days of bombed Iran into submission, when in fact, not only has the opposite happened, they are exerting control of the Strait of Hormuz, they come to the negotiating table, they're treated as equals, but it seems to have hardened Iran in a position that is adversarial to us. This past week, during the funeral for the now dead supreme leader of Iran, the Iranian president was attacked by a crowd of hardline supporters, according to the New York Times. They were shouting death to the appeaser because he was at the negotiating table with Trump. Another government official, the foreign minister, Agarachi, was assaulted with a rock on Monday as he was chased down an alley during the funeral, again, for sitting down with Trump. So they are getting it from the hardliners, and the people at the negotiating table are losing.
Yeah, I don't agree that this conflict has somehow hardened Iran even further. I think they were already as adversarial to the United States as they could be. They've been adversarial to us for 47 years. And it was this president that decided to try to do something about it. He also.
For 47 years, Scott Jennings has been repeating his favorite cliche and go-to-false claim.
Percentage chance the Iranians were never going to come to the table here in a meaningful way in good faith. I'm not surprised it's ending this way. The morning that the president signed the MOU, I talked to him and he said to me, as he'd said publicly, look, if they don't behave and they don't meet their obligations, we'll go back to the military campaign. That's what he has decided to do. And now it may just be time to say, look, we're not going to have some grand peace deal. We're going to have to monitor these guys. We're probably going to have to hit them from time to time. We are going to keep enough oil flowing through the strait. We're going to move other oil-producing nations away from reliance on the strait. They're not going to get a penny in sanctions relief. And, and the outcomes here are we've destroyed their military and turned all their neighbors against them. That's a way to declare victory out of this. And I
don't know if
that's what the president will do.
That seems like not a victory at all.
They don't control the strait.
Because they already got 20 days of sanctions relief. The Iranians are still exerting some control over the Strait of Hormuz. And on top of that, we are committing ourselves to indefinite bombing.
Right.
How does that work in our favor?
They're bombing other countries. The Strait of Hormuz is essentially a contested area. You can say it's easy for everyone to get through, but it's contested. That is a problem for the global economy. It is. I think the real problem here is that the president cannot get a face-saving deal out of the Iranians, and that is why he's back to bombing. But as a reminder to everyone, when there are bombings of Iran, essentially we all pay more for gas because prices of gas and prices of oil go up, as they did today. And I think this is the conundrum that the president is in.
What's the price of gas today?
The barrel went up to $78
okay.
crude.
So what's the price of a gallon of gas in the United States right now?
It's $4.30.
No, negative.
But
what was the highest price of gas under Joe Biden?
I don't. That's
Did
not,
you ever conduct
Scott,
a
that's
meeting
actually
about
not the
gas
question.
prices?
The question is how what is
gas is lower today than it was before he?
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not.
$3.20.
Gas is not lower today than when Trump took office, and it's not lower today than it was before Trump started the war. So look, you can dismiss the gas thing, but it's a real thing that people are going to the gas pump, filling up their tank, and it's costing them $70.
I appreciate conservatives don't care.
On January 20, 2025. Just saying.
It's less.
Yeah, we're at a lower Brent crude price today than we were on January 20.
What is the price at the pump compared to when Trump came to office?
It varies.
Let's pause the clip for a second, and then we'll hear what Beardo McGee has to say. Scott Jennings claims he spoke with Trump today after the whole Mitch McConnell mess. But honestly, whenever Scott Jennings says, I talked to the president, or I spoke with this person or that person, doesn't that raise some serious questions now? You'd think Abby Phillip, even though I like her and know she probably won't, could simply ask, you weren't truthful about the Mitch McConnell situation, so why should anyone believe what you're saying now? But that's the role of a propagandist. He goes on television to push talking points, and that's exactly what Scott Jennings does. And then he acts like such a tough guy whenever he starts talking about Iran. Wouldn't it be something if someone handed him a helmet, a pair of boots, and a rifle and said, all right, Scott, if you're so confident, go over there and back up everything you've been saying? I really wish all of these warmongering pundits like Scott Jennings and every politician who constantly pushes for war were the ones sent to fight instead of young people, many from working-class families being the ones risking their lives. Wouldn't it be something if you could simply teleport Scott Jennings straight to Iran and tell him, good luck. Now let's see if you can actually handle what you've been cheering for.
That's when Trump came to office.
Where were you then?
But look, let's go back to where are we in this war? The president seems to have made a complete 180. I'm trying to see the people who have said that President Trump doesn't seem to know what he's doing seem to be getting a lot of evidence, given the fact that 21 days later, he has decided all of a sudden that the people that he said were trustworthy and were completely different. And we've turned a corner. And J.D. Vance said that the Iranians have changed for good and they want to approach the world differently. And now he's saying the exact opposite. It seems like they don't really know what's going on.
No, I mean, the very simple response is that when the Iranians are abiding by the terms that they agreed with, Trump will say nice things about them. When they are not, he won't. They go back to complaints.
How do you explain them saying that? How do you explain them saying that they have changed? That's a different thing.
Okay, can I add an angle to that? Look, I think that, we've been at this, the Americans, for many, many years. I was involved as a civil society activist working, going to the White House, going to the State Department, telling about how to negotiate with the Iranians. One of the ways to make sense of this apparent switch about who these people are is that they're talking about different people. That is to say, the United States, and I'm sorry to say this, has fallen for the trap that the Iranians have laid for every administration. First of all, personally, I think it's very undignified that the Vice President of the United States is our representative with someone who the counterpart is really just the fourth level a person in Iran. This guy Ghalibaf, he is not in this. So, but what happens is that he sent, unfortunately, in my view, Vice President Vance to meet with a group of diplomats. These are the smoothest, most sophisticated diplomats you can find. They will tell you whatever you want to hear in public. And remember, I said this, I think, on the show last time, is that in the Middle East, you have to understand what anyone says to you in private, in English, is meaningless. It's only what they say in their own language and publicly that has any meaning. So what happens
is... And that's the opposite of what people would expect in the West.
It's different from the United States, where, politicians, so lie in public and tell the truth off record. But it's exactly the opposite in Iran. So what happened? So Vance and Wickoff, apparently, and Trump didn't realize this. They went to Istanbul. They heard, first of all, there was no photograph of Vance and Ghalibaf in the same room. By the way, that's a kind of scoop. I mean, there is no evidence that they were actually in the same room.
Red flag.
Well, they had mediators, right? Weren't they in separate?
Well, that's the other thing. The United States should never have accepted this absurd. The Iranians can't impose the terms of the deal. So what happens is the people that Vance reported to Trump that, I'm talking with these people and they're very rational. Well, they are. I've met them too. They're very smooth. But the people who are shooting at the ships are different. They are the IRGC and the leadership, and they don't care what the diplomats are saying.
So this is exactly why experienced experts matter. For years, we've heard the same tired line in America that people just want a president they could sit down and have a beer with, or someone who comes in as an outsider. Then situations like international conflicts remind us why that approach can fall apart when the people in charge don't understand how to deal with other countries or negotiate with world leaders. Trump, in my opinion, is completely unprepared, and the people around him don't seem to understand the Middle East, Iran, or how to handle serious diplomacy. The result is exactly what you'd expect, a complete mess that keeps getting worse. Then Scott Jennings comes out and defends everything no matter what. Abby Phillip or anyone else could say the sun is shining, but if Donald Trump insisted it was dark outside, Scott Jennings would somehow argue that everyone else was wrong and the president was right. That's the role he plays. He talks over people, spins every issue, twists simple facts into complicated arguments, and keeps bending logic into impossible shapes. No matter how many times Scott Jennings or other MAGA loyalists repeat claims that aren't true, they continue getting invited back on Abby Phillip's show. I like Abby Phillip, and I think she runs a solid program, but I wish she'd be more direct and simply tell Scott, that's not true. If you're going to keep misleading me, disrespecting this show, and disrespecting the audience, then you won't be invited back. Along with telling Scott Jennings to go back up all the tough talk he's always making, I'd also love to hear Abby Phillip say, sorry, Scott, you're done. You're not coming back here to push the same talking points anymore. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe you actually agree with Scott Jennings, although I can't imagine why. Do you think Abby Phillip should finally tell him he's full of it and stop inviting him back? Or at least tell him he can return only when he's ready to tell the truth? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.